You've been getting sloppy with your cleaning, haven't you? I noticed dust piling up in the corners. You're a stay-at-home wife, so please get it right. If I see dust the next time, I'm selling your laptop. My husband, John, started acting cold towards me as my workload increased as a cartoonist. At times when I was busy with deadlines, he would annoyingly give me specific instructions about housework and even make me redo the cleaning. John seems to expect perfect housework from me as a housewife, but being a cartoonist has been my dream since childhood. I don't want to give up now. Moreover, John seems to be keeping something from me. I'm not going to forgive him anymore. I am Anne, 31 years old, a freelance cartoonist. I draw essay-style cartoons and work diligently during the breaks between housework, being a working housewife. John, who's 35, and I registered our marriage 6 years ago on the condition that I would become a full-time housewife. 2 years into our marriage, both of my parents passed away, and we started living in the house I inherited as an only child. I didn't want to quit drawing cartoons, which I've been doing since my student days, so I pleaded with John, saying, "I'm fine with becoming a housewife, but my dream is to make a living through my cartoons. I'm only publishing independent comics now, but could you allow me to work from home?" He told me it sounded like a hobby, but gave me his approval, so I continued drawing after marriage. However, 6 months ago, a magazine editor noticed the cartoon that I had published on my site, and I started getting a 2-page, 4-panel cartoon in a monthly magazine. Since then, I started receiving more offers, drawing cartoons and illustrations, and my days have been busy. But when I told John about it, he openly looked disgusted. "You're getting carried away, aren't you? You're supposed to be a housewife first, and your cartoons are just a hobby, right? I bet your pay is like a child's allowance, isn't it?" Why are you saying things like that? I know you don't read or like cartoons, John, but I've always dreamed of becoming a cartoonist. It's a small job, sure, but since I'm getting paid, I'm a professional. Don't say things like that. But when I argued back, John became even more upset. "You're living off of me, and you have the audacity to talk back. If you have complaints, start earning more than me." I was left speechless. I often earn around $600 a month, but I try not to take on too much work because of him. Furthermore, John is always saying things like, "You've been getting sloppy with your cleaning, haven't you? I noticed dust piling up in the corners. You're a stay-at-home wife, so please get it right. If I see dust the next time, I'm selling your laptop." Especially when I'm busy with deadlines. Even though I know he's not serious, it scares me. In the end, I spend time cleaning and sometimes miss my deadlines. John seems annoyed when he sees me busy and bothers me by pointing out minor household chores. One day, it happened. John has a habit of eating dinner as soon as he gets home from work. That day, like always, he sat at the table, and the moment he took a bite of the stew, he erupted. "Hey, what's this? The carrot isn't cooked all the way through. Are you messing with me? I come home tired and this is what you serve your husband?" I had been zoning out after meeting a deadline, but John's outburst startled me and I turned to face him. At that moment, John grabbed the beer-filled glass in front of him and splashed it over me. I was stunned. I never thought I would ever get beer splashed on me in my life. Since I hadn't imagined this would happen, the shock was all the greater. I'm sorry, I must have zoned out while cooking. The rest should be okay, so you can leave the carrot. I realized mid-cooking that I had somehow forgotten to add the carrots, and in my rush, I had thrown them into the stew without parboiling them. Even though I had checked that the potatoes were thoroughly cooked, I had completely forgotten about the carrots. I usually don't make such mistakes. I felt pathetic. It seems that John could not forgive this mistake more than I had thought. "It's the worst to have a housewife who can't even do household chores properly. I shouldn't have married you." John said that, got up from his seat, and started to leave the dining room. I chased after John in a hurry, and he headed for the bedroom. "Where are you going?" "I'm leaving the house until you reflect on what you've done." "What?" I stood there bewildered as John packed his belongings into a travel bag and really left. I chased after him, but when John got to the nearest station,
he got into a taxi and went somewhere. No matter how many times I called, he didn't answer, and he didn't even read the apology text I sent him. I collapsed on the spot and burst into tears. At that moment, I felt a tap on my shoulder. When I turned around, there stood Mr. Tom, John's boss. In fact, I used to work at the same company as John until we got married. Mr. Tom was my boss, and he had enthusiastically trained me when I first joined the company. Mr. Tom?
I've become a section manager now. It's been a while, hasn't it? Since your wedding? Why are you crying? You smell like alcohol. Did you go drinking with your apron?
Hello, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I had a fight with John.
Ah, that guy. He can be condescending sometimes. It's bearable when he's a bit annoying at work, but I bet living together as a married couple, it's irritating, right?
Mr. Tom said that and gave me a bright, cheerful smile. How many times had this smile saved me when I made a mistake at work in the past? Mr. Tom and I decided to stop by a nearby diner to chat.
So, why were you crying?
Well, it's my fault. I messed up with the cooking today. I tried to make a stew, but the carrots weren't cooked well, and I upset John.
Haha, is that it? My wife is pretty much the same. When things like this happen, we just accept it as it is. Getting angry won't do any good, you know?
I like that perspective. As I said this, a smile broke out as we talked.
So, you two didn't have a fight when drinking out then?
No, the reason I smell of beer is because John got angry about the cooking and splashed beer on me. I ran to the train station thinking I had dried off, but I still smelled, don't I? I took a sniff of my clothes. Even if you're told you smell of alcohol, it's hard to tell for sure yourself.
What? He splashed beer over you just because you messed up a little with the cooking? That John, something's not right with him. I didn't like the guy from the start, but I can't believe he'd do such a thing to his wife.
Mr. Tom was genuinely angry, as if he'd been the one who had beer splashed on him. That somehow made me happy.
So, why did you come to this station? You must have run all the way here in your apron. Is it another John-related issue?
Yeah, John acted weird, called me a lazy wife, and left the house saying he wouldn't come back until I reflected on my actions. I chased after him and ended up here at the station, but he took a cab and just left. I was at a loss.
Mr. Tom's face, which had been angry until now,
suddenly became stiff. After a moment of silence, he said,
I can't tell you right now, but I have a bad feeling about this. I'll do some digging on John too. And there might be something John left behind at home. You might want to look around.
I didn't understand what he meant, but I nodded and we disbanded for the day. Mr. Tom escorted me home. Following Mr. Tom's advice, I checked John's often used shelves and rummaged through John's clothes, where I found a hotel points card in the pocket of his pants. The card showed it had been used quite recently, around noon on a Saturday when he claimed he had to work. This led me to be sure that John was cheating on me, and I suddenly remembered something I had completely forgotten. It was something we talked about before getting married. We had agreed it would be handy if we could locate each other's phones using GPS in case one of us lost ours. We researched together and installed a special app for locating devices, which I had completely forgotten about. I launched the app and entered the password and discovered that John was in a rather surprising place. He was at a famous tourist spot. It was a well-known dating spot, and I couldn't imagine he would go there all alone. I assumed that John was on a trip with his mistress and decided to act on that assumption. The next day, I called the company and asked to speak to Mr. Tom. Mr. Tom, thank you for yesterday.
No problem. Was there something?
Is it possible that John didn't come to work today? Mr. Tom was silent for a while, but after letting out a long sigh, he said,
Yes. He's on a paid leave for the next 4 days.
I thought as much.
I don't like to say it, but he's probably...
Yes, I understand, but this gives me some clarity. Thank you. After hanging up, I made a resolution and left the house. I had been thinking about it. If John ever betrayed me, this is what I would do. after finishing my task, I called another person. "Hello, it's been a while." The person on the other end spoke to me in a bright voice, but as soon as I started talking about John, they sided with me. I hung up the phone feeling reassured, believing that things would surely move in a favorable direction. The next day, along with some people, I went to the location indicated by John's smartphone GPS. It was right inside a resort hotel near a famous tourist spot. Right now, he seemed to be outside the hotel, with the GPS indicating he was near the beach. John turned pale the moment he saw my face. With a smirk, I aimed my phone at John and rapidly clicked pictures to get a two-shot with the girl in her early 20s standing next to him. By the way, I had been taking photos since 30 minutes ago when John was applying suntan oil to this woman in a bikini. I let him swim until I could get definite proof that John was cheating. Perhaps because of their liberating environment or their minds were utterly clear, they were kissing in public. I felt no shock, perhaps because my patience had run out. Rather, I was grateful that they provided such good evidence. What surprised John and turned him pale wasn't just because he saw my face. Behind me there were my in-laws, both casting stern glances at John. "What's going on, John?" As I approached with a smile, John, flustered, stumbled in the sand and fell on his rear end. Seeing this, my mother-in-law heaved a sigh. "How pathetic, even for my own son. And who might this lady be? You abandoned your wife, and what are you up to?"
"But it's because this woman doesn't do any housework."
John hastily pointed at me and blamed me. "Oh, is it correct to say she does absolutely nothing? Even if she occasionally skips cleaning, she does laundry, cooking, and dishes every day, doesn't she? Even I sometimes skip cleaning, and I dislike laundry so much, I leave it to your father at times."
"That's because you had a part-time job, isn't it? It's different with this woman. She's a stay-at-home wife who just spends her time drawing and playing. Why can't she at least properly do housework?"
At John's words, my father-in-law was enraged.
"You don't understand anything."
Even the people around us were startled and focused on us. Some seems like they might point their smartphone cameras at us. Why don't we discuss this in a more appropriate setting? Everyone agreed with my suggestion, and my in-laws and I went ahead to a nearby restaurant. John and the woman he was cheating with, Mary, changed from their swimsuits to casual clothes and met up with us, and the five of us sat down together. We started by hearing John's side of the story.
"I wanted Anne to be a stay-at-home wife, but she started this useless hobby of drawing cartoons and neglected the housework. When she won't do as I say, it's natural that I would look for the next candidate for a wife."
The one to retort to that was Mary. Isn't that different from what you told me? You said you were troubled because a stalker was coming to your house and you wanted me to help you forget about the unpleasant reality for a while. I suggested that you should report to the police, but you said that it was only a matter of time until the stalker would be caught. Knowing you had a wife, I wouldn't have dated you." With that, Mary started crying. It seems she's still a college student and she had met John on a dating app. She was drawn to an older man and decided to date him, but now she was lamenting that she had been deceived. "I'm really sorry. I won't contact John again. I'll take this as a good lesson and make sure I'm not fooled next time." After bowing deeply to me and my in-laws, Mary showed us the screen where she had deleted John's number. Then she left a few bills for her coffee on the table and left. I glared at John, who was in a daze after Mary had left. "It's natural that I won't do exactly as you say. I have my own feelings and circumstances. I'm not a robot you can control. Running off to have an affair just because things aren't going well is despicable." John seemed to want to say something, but my father-in-law spoke first.
"You still seem dissatisfied, huh? But I'm the one who's earning and feeding Anne, aren't I? Anne should respect me as the breadwinner."
John was shaking with anger, but my father-in-law spoke to him calmly.
"You're still just like a child. Just because things aren't going your way, you're throwing tantrums just like a toddler. Accept Anne's wishes as they are. There's nothing more for us to tell you."
His in-laws then got up, took the check, and headed to the register. John and I were left alone, and I too had nothing more to say to him. "John, I've been offered a serial comic strip in a magazine." John, who was a complete change from before, looked at me with a startled expression.
"Oh, congratulations."
"So, I can no longer be the stay-at-home wife you want. I'm sorry. I'm tired of being with you, John. I want a divorce."
"I'm sorry, it was all my fault. You can draw as many comics as you want. I'll help with the housework too. I won't say arrogant things anymore."
John pleaded with tears in his eyes, but I averted my gaze from him. I didn't want to see any more of my husband's pathetic figure. "I'm sorry, but that's not the problem anymore. You were looking down on me, weren't you? I thought marriage was about equal standing, but you were different, John. You thought you were superior because you were working and providing for me, right?"
"No, maybe I did, but I've had a change of heart. I promise I won't make you suffer anymore. So don't say we should break up."
"I've decided to sell the house we were living in. I have a relative who runs a real estate agency, and when I told them about the situation, they agreed to buy it right away. There's still some paperwork and things to do, so it's not like we can sell it right away, but it will be a lower price than if we had it brokered. But it's my house, and I can do what I want with it, right? I want to end our relationship as soon as possible. I plan to leave tomorrow. You should leave the house as soon as possible, too." With that, I got up from my seat and started walking towards the exit. Unlike the day when John had left the house, this time he was desperately chasing after me. But when I got into the car my in-laws had, my father-in-law, who was in the driver's seat, started the car the moment I slammed the door. John was chasing after us crying, but I couldn't see him anymore. After that, it seemed John didn't believe my words. When he returned from his trip and saw the house with all my belongings gone, he called me crying. Out of pity, I answered the phone one last time.
"Why did you sell the house? It was our house, wasn't it?"
"Why are you saying such absurd things? It's the house I inherited from my parents, remember?"
"Then I should have rights to it too, right?"
"Actually, there are no rights to inherited property for a spouse. If you understand, get out of the house as soon as possible, and expect a call from the lawyer about alimony and the divorce. Don't run away, okay?" I said what I wanted to say and hung up the phone. After that, it seems John was scolded by Mr. Tom for taking paid vacation to go on a trip with his mistress. There's no need to give a reason for taking paid vacation, but it seems he was harshly questioned for betraying his wife to go on a trip. It seems he is having a tough time being looked down on by his coworkers and feeling uncomfortable every day. And his in-laws have also abandoned John. John tried to return to his in-laws' house, but they refused him. After paying alimony, John had drained his savings and started to accumulate debt. He's now living alone in a cheap apartment, incapable of properly managing household chores, and seems to be leading a disordered life. I heard about this later from Mr. Tom, but I felt nothing. As for me, I moved into a neat studio apartment and am hard at work on the draft for my serialized comic strip. It's an anthology-style comic, and I'm gathering and using various people's stories as references. The next story I'm planning to draw is themed around a husband's infidelity, and I'm considering using John as a material.
Get out! Old hags who can't even do housework!
My husband and I, who had been living with our eldest son and his wife, were contributing $3,000 to the household every month. But his wife spouted such abusive language at us. We had been subjected to other forms of harassment from her as well. My husband and I were finally deeply angered. We wanted nothing more to do with such a woman, resolved strongly to take our revenge one day. My name is Susie. At 62, I work part-time while also being a homemaker. I live with my same-aged husband, David. David is a serious and kind office worker, so we have a steady income and never had any big fights. We have a son, Lawrence, who is 32 years old. Like his father, Lawrence is a very kind child who has grown up well. After graduating from university, he got a job at a private company and is working earnestly. And 2 years ago, he got married to a woman named Emily, whom he met at the same company. But as it turns out, this Emily was an utterly wicked woman. When we first met Emily, she seemed like a serious and sweet woman. Lawrence also told us, she's diligent at work and she has a good reputation with her superiors. Emily is 6 years younger than Lawrence, and while we were unsure if they could get along well, we thought they would be fine since Lawrence decided to marry her. After their marriage, Lawrence and Emily started living together in a certain apartment. After getting married, Emily said, "I'll take over all the housework for the busy Lawrence," and became a stay-at-home wife. Lawrence seemed to be very grateful for that. "Thanks to Emily doing all the housework, I can focus on the job I love. I'm grateful." My husband and I had no doubt that our son had married a good woman. However, Emily gradually began to reveal her true colors. First, there was a family gathering for the new year where we met Emily. But at first, I didn't recognize that it was Emily. That's because her appearance had drastically changed. The last time I saw her, Emily had black hair and didn't wear heavy makeup. She seemed like a very reserved woman. But now she had transformed into a flashy, pink hair woman. She was wearing noisy bracelets around her wrists and looked very different from the person I had known. My husband, David, and the rest of our relatives were taken aback by Emily's drastic change. At that moment, Lawrence stepped in to mediate. "I'm sorry if we surprised you. I was also shocked when I came home from work one day to find Emily like this. However, she handles all the household chores well, and we have no issues. Besides, Emily is a full-time homemaker. Can we give her a pass?" After hearing that, I felt a sense of relief. Well, if Lawrence is okay with it, then it's fine by me. I was just surprised because Emily looks so different. It's not right to judge people by their appearance, and it's not my place to complain. After I said that, the rest of my family seemed to agree. Later, we all enjoyed drinking together until Emily caused a scene. She got incredibly drunk and started to verbally abuse everyone around her.
Hey, are you defying me? Back in middle school, I once knocked down 3 classmates at once.
It seems that she had a bad habit when drunk. She even lashed out at me and David, shouting,
"Stop clinging to life unnecessarily, you old nuisances! No one is happy that you're alive."
Her words hurt me deeply. There's a line between what's acceptable and what's not, even when drunk. David looked angry, and Lawrence was quite surprised. "Hey, you're going too far, even for a drunken conversation. Apologize," he chided. However, Emily even defied Lawrence.
"You dump all the household chores on me, and then you have the nerve to lecture me? A wimpy guy like you, I could take you down in a second."
Emily continued her tirade, hurling abuse at everything in sight, causing trouble for everyone. Eventually, she passed out from the alcohol and finally quieted down, but the atmosphere was tense. Everyone was angry at Emily. Then one of the relatives started a conversation. "Emily mentioned earlier about defeating classmates. Was she a former delinquent?" "No, Emily graduated from a public university. I thought she was a serious person at heart," Lawrence responded, but that relative remained skeptical. "Do we have concrete proof that she's lived a straight life? Perhaps we should investigate Emily's past and what kind of person she is." I agreed with this suggestion. Perhaps taking this incident seriously, Lawrence promised to look into it. Since Emily had lost her parents and had few connections with her relatives, he hired a private investigator. The investigation revealed that Emily was quite rebellious during her middle school years and was the leader of a delinquent group. She was such a notorious bad girl that even the famous local hooligans followed her orders. From the time she was in 9th grade, due to the thoughts of her future, Emily started to behave more seriously on the surface. She graduated from a public university, but she never cut ties with her rowdy group of friends. Even now, when Lawrence is away at work, Emily invites these unruly friends over to their house. What's worse, they make such a commotion that it has become a nuisance to the neighbors. Emily was merely concealing her true nature. She was quite the troublemaker indeed. Frustrated by this, Lawrence broached the subject of divorce. However, Emily cried and pleaded, "I'm sorry, I'll become serious from now on. Please forgive me. I absolutely need you, Lawrence. Please don't divorce me." And even changed back to her old attire. She even took out her smartphone and deleted her friends' contact numbers right in front of Lawrence. She apologized over the phone to the relatives who were bothered by her during the New Year's gathering. She also called me to apologize several times. If she's willing to go to such lengths, Lawrence thought about reconsidering. As a result, they didn't divorce and decided to continue their married life. Lawrence is the one married to Emily, and I thought it's not good for parents to interfere too much, so my husband and I decided to respect Lawrence's decision. In fact, when I met Emily again at the family summer gathering, she had become a serious woman. I thought things would be okay like this, but one day, while I was at my part-time job, I lifted a heavy object. The instant I did that, I felt an intense pain in my back, and I couldn't move at all. Other staff members hurriedly took me to the hospital, and it turned out to be a pretty severe case of back strain, so I was told to rest for a while. When I informed Lawrence about this over the phone, I got this reply. "Why don't you use this opportunity to live with us, me and Emily? Of course, along with Dad too. We'd all live together. Given your ages, incidents like these, injuries or illnesses, are bound to increase. It'd be better if me and Emily were around to help when something happens." When I thought about it, it made sense. Around the time my back pain healed, my husband and I, along with Lawrence and Emily, discussed and officially decided to live together. My husband and I live in a spacious single-family home, and there would be no issues with 4 of us living there. So, Lawrence and Emily moved in with us, and we started living together. Initially, everything was going smoothly. Emily was doing half the household chores, which greatly reduced my workload. My husband and I would contribute from our paychecks, giving about $3,000 to the household every month. I work part-time and can't give much, but I wanted to reduce the financial burden on Lawrence and Emily as much as possible. However, Emily slowly started changing her behavior. First, she would say she's not feeling well and started pawning off household chores onto me. At first, I believed Emily and did most of the chores for her, but she seemed perfectly fine. She's been eating well, even going for second helpings at meals, and she looks healthy. Moreover, she has been going out all day long under the pretext of having fun. I couldn't help but ask, "Emily, I hate to say this, but are you really feeling unwell? You seem quite lively and you're out a lot." When I dared to ask this, Emily glared at me fiercely. "What? Are you doubting me? If you pull any more stunts, I'll punch you in the face." I was dumbfounded. What coarse language. It became clear at that moment that she was not at all remorseful. She must be pretending to have changed her ways because she doesn't want to break up with Lawrence. However, she was just pretending. Emily, perhaps thinking that I was scared, scoffed at me. "Scared, are ya? Well, that's not surprising. I've been playing the quiet girl until now, but I'm done with that. From now on, I'm going to let my personality shine. You know what will happen if you resist, right?" Emily must have intimidated others like this back in her student days. Perhaps because she was able to manipulate others into doing as she wanted, she continues this behavior into adulthood. It would be a lie to say I'm not afraid of Emily, but I didn't live 62 years just for show. I won't bow down to the threats of this former gangster. Maintaining a firm attitude, I warned her coldly. If your harassment goes too far, it could become a crime, you know. I'm not your robot to do as you command. I won't just do as you say. If you do something, I won't hesitate to call the police. Emily seemed taken aback by my unexpected response, but she quickly retorted, "Shut up, old hag. I'll never forgive you." Emily's shouting startled David and Lawrence, who came running. They were at home because it was a day off. When I explained the situation briefly, both David and Lawrence frowned. For the moment, it was decided to have a discussion among the 4 of us. David told Emily, "First of all, apologize to Susie." However, Emily refused to apologize. Instead, she crossed her arms defiantly.
Why do I have to apologize to an old hag? I thought Susie would take care of the housework, so I decided to live together. But my burden hasn't lessened as I thought. It's now the worst. What's wrong with getting angry at a useless old hag who only ages? David, Lawrence, and I were all dumbfounded. How selfish can she be to move in with such motives? Then Emily said something even more shocking. No matter what anyone says to me, I won't change. From now on, you all will become my hands and feet. Oh, but I don't need Susie and David. You're old hags who don't even do housework, so get out of the house. Hearing this, I was finally truly angry. I've had enough of this woman. I firmly resolved to take my revenge. My husband seemed to feel the same intense anger. Uncharacteristic for my usually calm husband, his face was flushed with fury. Then he said, "Should we move out now?" Feeling the same urge to distance myself from Emily immediately, I nodded and said, "Yes, let's do that." Then my husband and I quickly packed our stuff and left immediately. Even though we said we were moving, I couldn't take large items like dressers, so we decided to come back for them another day. Lawrence said that he still had things to discuss with Emily, so he decided to stay at the house. My husband and I headed to a cheap business hotel for the time being. We don't own another house, and we didn't want to impose on our friends, so we decided to stay there until we find a new place. The next day, from 8 in the morning, Emily started calling my cell phone. I thought I should ignore it and left it be, but she was so persistent, calling 20 times in just 1 hour. Although I regretted not blocking her calls, I was slightly curious about what she wanted, so I decided to answer just once. "Hello, is this Susie? Actually, I have a favor to ask of you." Emily's voice, sounding all cutesy, came from the other end of the phone. I instantly realized she was up to no good, and to be honest, it was creepy. From serious face to bad girl, now acting all cutesy? I found myself wondering just how many personalities this woman has. One thing for certain, I can't trust Emily no matter what personality she presents. Deciding it was a waste of time to continue this conversation, I simply said no thanks. I hung up, blocked her calls, and blocked her on all messaging apps so she couldn't contact me. My husband, watching my actions, did the same. We, as a couple, decided to permanently ignore all communication from Emily. In the afternoon, this time Lawrence called. "Mom, I've divorced Emily. I left the house early this morning, and I've just submitted the divorce papers. Last night, when I told Emily that I wanted a divorce, she said, 'Try if you can,' so I didn't hesitate and did it." Upon hearing that, I thought my son had made a wise decision. Being with a woman like that would never bring happiness. Instead, I told him that Emily had called, and for some reason, she was acting all cutesy. Lawrence, after hearing this, told me with a look of disgust. "You know, back in her rebellious phase, Emily would act all cute to make up whenever things get awkward with her boyfriend. She's really dumb if she thinks that kind of childish tactic would work now that we're all adults." I completely agreed with him. Emily may have a decent educational background, but she's immature and arrogant. We thought we made the right choice in cutting ties with her, but Lawrence's story didn't end there. "Actually, Emily's been cheating too." "What? Really?" I was genuinely surprised. I couldn't believe that she had the audacity to cheat on top of her already horrendous behavior. I suspected that Emily's claims about being ill were false. She seemed perfectly healthy and was going out too frequently. I thought she was hiding something else, so I hired a private investigator. Turns out she's been cheating with a guy we don't know. I even have photos as proof. Looking at the photos Lawrence sent to my phone, I saw Emily kissing a young man in public. The man had green hair and seemed very flashy. I told Emily that I'd sue her for damages, and I fully intend to. I'm going to claim damages from her affair partner as well. Emily acted all cool when I told her, though. Then, why did she call me, I wonder? Who knows? I think she probably wanted to know where I was after I moved out. Emily never thought I'd actually leave. She thought if she acted tough and intimidating, I'd stay by her side. But now that I'm really gone, I think she panicked and tried to win me over. I sighed. No matter the reason, I would never help a person like that.
I wish she could experience loneliness all on her own. Eventually, my husband Lawrence and I found a new apartment. We decided to live there together. We considered forcing Emily out and living in our old house, but it would be too large for Lawrence to live alone after we pass away. Besides, there's a chance it could end up being vacant in the future. Vacant properties can cause various problems, so we thought it would be better to sell it off. Lawrence agreed, saying, "I don't necessarily need to live in the house. Selling it is fine with me." Emily will lose her place to live, but we didn't care about that. We still have a lot of our stuff in the old house, so we decided to go back there with some relatives who offered to help us move. Upon entering the house, there was Emily, wearing a sickeningly smug grin on her face.
I realized when I was alone, I really can't handle loneliness. So, wouldn't you all live together again? Also, I want to save some money, and I really don't want to pay Lawrence any alimony. Without an apology at this point, her audacious request made my anger boil over. When you make a request, you should do so with some humility. Stop this joking around. No matter how you ask, I won't listen to your pleas.
Then my husband David chimed in coldly. "We are going to sell this house, so leave as soon as possible, and pay Lawrence the alimony he deserves." "I could never love you again. Stop trying to rekindle our relationship." Lawrence echoed. At that, Emily dropped her flirty facade.
Lawrence has a stable income, so I thought if we got married, I could relax and become a housewife. But now there's not a shred of ulterior motive. I truly love Lawrence. Of course, I also need you, Susie and David.
No matter what she said, our anger, mine, David's, and Lawrence's, wouldn't abate. Rather, it just kindled more rage. At that moment, a silent relative who had been observing the situation couldn't stand it any longer and interjected.
Emily, you are such a despicable woman. If you have so much to say, why don't we settle this in a fair fight? You seem pretty confident about your strength. I'll have you know I competed in a national karate competition.
The relatives swiftly stepped closer to Emily, staring her down. They radiated an imposing aura. This relative, a person in their 30s, was renowned for their physical strength. The part about competing in a karate competition was true. We had called them in case Emily decided to cause trouble. Even Emily, sensing the threatening vibe, whimpered, No, I don't want to fight."
After you move out, never bother Susie and the rest again. You better leave quickly. And before you do, apologize properly,
the relative warned in a low voice. Emily, suddenly becoming more understanding, quickly responded,
Yes, I understand. I'll leave right away. All my large belongings, I'll leave them all here. I'm really sorry."
She groveled, hastily packing up her belongings and leaving. Seeing this, the relative smirked.
Emily can only act tough with those she thinks are weaker than her.
When faced with someone she perceives as stronger, she becomes a submissive, spineless person, they observed. David, Lawrence, and I, recalling Emily's retreating figure, burst into laughter. With the pest gone, our moving preparations proceeded smoothly, and we managed to relocate to our new home without a hitch. After that, Emily rented an apartment and started living alone. As warned, Lawrence filed a claim for alimony. Perhaps due to the involvement of a lawyer, both Emily and her lover readily paid up. The person she was dealing with was a lawyer, someone who seems to hold significant power, and I suppose that's why she readily agreed. As my relative said, it seems she can't take a stand against someone stronger than herself. Since then, I have had nothing to do with Emily, but I do know what she's been up to. It was reported on the news that she was arrested. Combining the news reports, information I heard from acquaintances, and my own experiences, it seems Emily has led the following kind of life. Firstly, Emily used up most of her savings paying alimony. She planned to remarry the man she cheated with and live off of his income, but he cut off all contact. Left with no other choice, she took a job at a private company, but quickly quit after cursing at her boss. After that, she shamelessly approached me, my husband, and Lawrence at our workplaces asking for money. But the three of us completely ignored her and didn't engage with her at all, so it seems she eventually gave up. She accrued debt and finally ran out of money, and she turned to her old gang for help, but no one seemed willing to lend a hand to the fallen Emily.
In a fit of rage, Emily assaulted one of her gang members quite severely and was arrested, ending up in prison. My husband, Lawrence, and I all felt that she got what she deserved. She's been causing trouble since her student days, only caring about maintaining her facade, never showing any remorse. A woman like that, it seems fitting that her place is in prison. I hope she takes this time to reflect on her actions. On the other hand, my husband, Lawrence, and I are living peaceful, everyday lives. The three of us are living happily together, and we're even planning to take a trip on our next long weekend. Moreover, cleaning is much easier in our apartment compared to a detached house, and it's conveniently located near the station. I think we made the right decision moving here. We want to continue enjoying our peaceful life as a family of 3.